Committee, tonight being Tuesday, March 24th, here at the Abington Town Hall, time being 7 o'clock p.m. Tonight we're lucky to have the grade 6 class from Woodsdale School here to present, and we'd like to ask them if they'd lead us in the salute to the flag.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And we begin each meeting reading the Abington Public Schools mission statement. The mission of the Abington Public Schools is to provide all students with relevant, challenging educational experiences to prepare them to be engaged, responsible citizens, and members of the global community. And next we're going to have hearing of visitors. And hearing none. At this point, we're going to ask Principal Matt McCurtain from Woodsdale Elementary School to introduce his grade 6 presentation.
Thank you. Very happy to bring with me tonight Mrs. Christine Sullivan, grade 6 teacher, and 3 of her wonderful students to present to you an activity that our entire 6th grade does. On squid dissection, they prepared a slideshow for you to view, and they can come up with this slide.
I'm very pleased to introduce to you members of the school committee, Jason Dole, Lila Blanchard, and Abigail Bodie. And I'm going to turn this presentation over to them since this is their show.
We have recently studied a science unit about animals. During the whole unit, we were anxiously waiting to dissect squid. When the day finally came, it was so exciting.
As we began our dissection, we were reminded to treat the animals with respect because it was once a living thing. Some of us worked alone while others worked with partners depending on their comfort level.
The following PowerPoint describes many of the steps we took in our science lab. A squid is a mollusk. First, we absorb the dorsal side of the squid. The dorsal side means the back. Next, we observe the ventral side of the squid. Ventral means the underside. We use tweezers to count the squid's arms and tentacles. There are 8 in all. We also use the tweezers to spot the mantle. The mantle protects the squid. We then use scissors to cut the water jet down the center. Squid moves by jet propulsion.
Once the squid was cut open, we successfully found the gills and heart. This is what the inside of a squid looks like. We tried to identify if our squid was a male or a female. Most of us had female squid. The hard shell-like structure that lies along the back side of the squid is called a pen. We were able to remove the pen from the squid. The pen is clear. After taking the ink sac out of the squid, we were able to use the pen to write our names with ink. The ink sac is used as a defense mechanism. Luke did a great job. It was time to remove the squid's beak. Some came out in one piece and other beaks came out in two. We used our tweezers to reach into the squid's mouth and remove the beak.
This is what a squid's beak looks like. We also removed the squid's brains in the mouth. It was a very hard task to accomplish. It took a lot of effort and patience. This is what a squid's brain looks like. Abby was able to remove the brain and keep the nerve cord attached. Finally, we got to dissect the eye, and we found the hard, round, clear lens, which looks like a tiny marble. A fully dissected squid.
That looks so much better.
Calamari, do I like it? We learned a lot about the squid's anatomy both inside and out.
The hands-on experience was fun and helped us understand more about mollusks. We hope you enjoyed the presentation and learned something new.
We also hope we didn't spoil your love for calamari. Thank you.
Great job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job.
How long did it take you guys to do it? How long?
It took about the whole afternoon of school, so from around 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock, I think.
Awesome.
Good job.
How'd you feel about it before you did it and now after you finished?
I was very excited. And I feel like it was a good opportunity and I got to do it.
Was that the first time you've ever dissected anything?
Well, we kind of examined the clams like a couple weeks before we did it.
But that was like your first big,
Yeah.
big procedure. Big procedure, yeah, exactly.
So are you guys still fans of calamari?
Luke says no.
Yeah.
Never were. Is that right?
Thank you so much, that was great.
It's great.
Thank you.
Thank you again.
Before we move on, just going to thank the committee and Mr. Schaefer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Teresa and the Abington Public Library and Deb Grimmett for helping us in our organizing of our coffee hour that we had early in March. It's a good success, and I want to thank all the community that did stop by for our meet and greet. And then before we move on to the records, I'm just going to read some correspondence that we received to the Abington School Committee. This is from ATN Burgoyne. Dear Ellen Killian and everyone on the school committee, I would like to let you know the banquet was one of the best nights of my life. Receiving a reward from the committee was a big highlight of the night. Your service is what makes the town of Abington so great. Thank you so very much. Sincerely, ATN Burgoyne. This is in response to the banquet for golf and football. I'll share it if anybody wants to read that. So next we have the reading and approval of the records from February 24th.
had nothing on this.
I've got on page 1 of that unfinished business, it makes a reference to Mr. Emerson, attorney. I think that needs to be clarified, because if you read this, it sounds like he was actually here, and he wasn't present. Because that's a little unclear, that sentence is sort of just dropped in there.
Do we know who mentioned that? We could say, so-and-so noted that Mr. Emerson recommended.
So it would probably be me.
Or we could say, we could go back and watch the tape for, say, we could highlight somehow he was not present at the meeting.
How about in a previous conversation with Mr. Emerson, attorney, it was recommended?
But why did we have a previous conversation with Mr. Emerson? That doesn't clarify it.
Okay.
I think it was to clarify whether individual evaluations could be shared.
Right, but that's not in here. And then on page 6, we talk about Massachusetts Business Alliance and the other information, on the informational items. It just notes it there. We did have a discussion, and one of the reasons I brought that up was because I don't want someone to get the impression, because that article is really all about Park and how Park is superior to MCAS. And I don't want to be a school committee member that's out there promoting that idea when I don't have the information to base that on. So we did have a discussion, and I'm concerned the way the minutes reflect is that if someone went to this article, that it's something that the school committee was advocating, and there was a discussion on it, just, talking about the Gates Foundation and Nellie Mae Foundation and other things, that didn't make it into the minutes. I think it's just misleading to have that reference in there without the discussion that happened.
What if it said, it was noted that this press release was not intended to take a position on Park or MCAS, but purely informational?
Yeah, there needs to be some reference that this isn't, that the school committee isn't taking a position on it. Because someone would come back and say, I'm sure there's an article out there that would say MCAS is superior to Park.
It was noted that this press release was not intended to advocate a position on MCAS or Park. Because that was noted during the meeting. And then, what if it's stated in the first question, parenthetically after, I think we need to assign responsibility for who shared that at the meeting. I know it was shared at the meeting about the attorney, but I don't know who said it, so I guess we'd have to look that up.
Have to go back.
I don't know how else to solve that. So we could bring these back if people want, or what the committee wants to do.
I don't think we necessarily need to bring it back for another meeting. I mean, I think we can make an update and forward it.
So it would be based on the changes,
Two amendments.
the two revisions.
What's the first revision?
It was the attorney.
The attorney, Emerson.
Are you
Right.
asking how is it being revised?
Yeah, how's it being revised? I know it's the attorney, but how's it being revised?
We'll have to go back and watch the meeting and see who actually stated it. Or what was said.
Okay.
So I'm not making a motion.
It's up to
Can we just say prior to the meeting, Mr. Emerson, attorney, recommended that these not be shared? Or am I repeating what Kathy already said? Okay.
We cannot do that? Oh, we can. Can we do that?
We can do that.
So is somebody, are we making a motion to,
Yeah, I'll
somebody
make a
making a
motion.
motion to have the minutes changed to reflect that?
Yes.
As well as the change on page 6?
Yes.
Yes.
So,
I'll second that motion.
all in favor?
So what, can I just ask,
Oh,
what's the,
sorry.
what's it gonna say? What's the
So
motion
prior
that it
to the
says?
meeting, Mr. Emerson, attorney, recommended that these not be shared. So I'll just add prior to the meeting.
Mhm. So
And
that he
then-
wasn't at the meeting.
Right. And on the back, it was, this press release was informational, was not intended to advocate a position on MCAS or PAC. So Leslie, Mike seconded, is it unanimous?
No, I don't,
So I think you need to ask all those in favor,
All
so you
in
get a clear
favor?
vote, and no,
Aye.
Leslie, Mike, Kathy?
and no.
And a no.
And no vote?
no.
Okay. And next we have the minutes from February 3rd.
And these minutes were updated per the discussion we had at our last school committee meeting.
Right.
I have nothing additional to add to these minutes.
Everybody else had a chance?
I think some of the sections are better, but there was still a couple of sections I don't think met what the discussion was. So,
So are you asking that we make some changes, additional changes to the minutes, or?
No, I'm not recommending any changes, I just won't support the vote to approve the minutes. We had, this is the second chance we've had at it. And so go back to, we wouldn't allow a student in the Abington Public Schools to submit stuff like this, so we shouldn't accept it either. But, I mean, there's the context, it's just not there. And we've got references to members, we've got statements that are made, we don't know who said them, what questions why, so. But this is the second shot at it, so. I'm not looking to hold it up, I'm just saying that.
I don't find that at all. I feel like it looks and reads well.
Are you looking for additional comment or a motion regarding the minutes of February 3rd, 2015?
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes as presented in this meeting.
I
Second?
second
All in favor?
that. Mhm.
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No,
Just give me a minute here to call.
can I make a motion that we take the superintendent's evaluation out of order, allow Sam to go first, so we could keep the evaluation and then Peter's goals, one after another, just so there's some, I mean, they really flow together.
I don't have a problem with that.
Sure. I'll make that motion to go out of order in that sequence.
Everyone else set?
Paul,
Yeah.
Paul makes the
Second.
motion.
It's a good
idea. Mike
Okay.
seconds it.
Second.
Yeah.
Okay, all in favor. So then next, we're going to juggle around a little bit here, and we have our Abington High School student representative, Sam Alfronte, who's going to discuss the upcoming spring trip to Europe. Are you all packed?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I want to start off and say that the 25 to 30 students that are going had fundraised and spent a great deal of time together prior to all this happening, and all the students have met requirements, conduct and grades-wise. I have 3 handouts. It's the one I'm going to talk about, and then the one that's all the days is like the itinerary for every day, and the hotel information. I figured you guys wanted that. And these were provided by the counselors going. So the EF tour details, the flights, we, on Friday, April 17th, we're going to arrive at Abington High School at 12:45. And from Abington at 1:45, we'll take a bus to Logan Airport for our first flight, which will fly to New York. And then out of JFK, we're going to fly to London. And once we land in London, we will meet our tour director. And this is quoted by the Educational First Tours website. The tour director is responsible for all the logistics of your tour. They will coordinate details including bus transportation, accommodation, meals, and special excursions. Your tour director will also show you the highlights of your destinations and can recommend free time activities. Additionally, your tour director will be with you throughout the tour and is trained to handle any challenging situations or emergencies that may arise. Next, I just wrote the return flight is from Munich to Amsterdam on Sunday, 4/26, and then from Amsterdam to Boston. The hotels, they're attached here. They're all 3-star or above hotels. And room checks will happen each night at various times, and counselors reserve the right to search a room at their discretion. The absolutes, which is provided from the counselors in a PowerPoint that they went over with the parents and the students. Alcohol is prohibited. This is a school field trip. All school rules apply. The rule of 3, what they're calling it, is never travel in a group smaller than 3 people. If you notice that a person has no one to venture off with during free time, please include them. No one should be left alone. And then be on time. The tour guides and chaperones will give students specific times to abide by for wake-up, breakfast, lunch, dinner, buses, and meeting with group. Students must be on time. Being late will result in loss of free time. And then the itinerary, which is each day. If you guys want me to go through it, I can. If not.
Maybe just highlight 1 or 2 items, nothing.
All right, so the first day is actually the travel day. So and that last day is the travel day back to Boston. So when we land in London, which is actually day 2, we get straight on a bus and just head off to the tour. We don't go to a hotel, so we got to travel kind of light. They don't want us really checking bags or anything. They'd rather have us all have carry-ons. So we do London. It's a walking tour, and then we have dinner in London, and then head back to the hotel, which will probably all be exhausted from the flight. And then we wake up the next morning, and we kind of do a couple tours. One's a 3-hour bus tour of London, and it's by a local guide, so that should be pretty exciting. And then we do the London Eye and Thames River cruise, and then we have dinner in London again. And then the next day we travel by train to Paris, which is a 2.5-hour ride, and then we go back to the hotel in Paris. We check in and we do a walking tour of Paris and visit the Louvre Museum, and then we have a dinner in London. And then the next day we visit the Cathedral of Notre Dame. That should be pretty interesting. And then we have a night boat cruise that night, which is tentative, and I think it's by how many people really want to go when we get there, depending on how tired we are and stuff like that. Day 6 is a full day bus ride to Switzerland, and they stop twice for gift shopping and, I believe, lunch. And then we have dinner at the hotel, and then we tour the city. Day 7 is a walking tour of the city, and we have a little bit of free time of shopping and lunch. And I'm not sure if that is a tour, Pilatus, I think it is. It says $90. I'm not sure if that has been bought or it's going to be, if people want to go, they can pay the extra money to do it. Day 8 is a bus to Munich, and we have time to see Munich, and then have dinner there, and then head back to the hotel. Day 9 is a bus tour of Munich, and then a bus to Dachau, the concentration camp. And then we have a walking tour of Munich, and dinner at Munich, and then back to the hotel. And then day 10, we come back to Abington.
And back to school on Monday, right?
And then one of the highlights of the hotel is the Paxton Resort and Spa. Has a huge bowling alley that I think everyone's pretty excited to go to. We looked up pictures of it. Should be fun.
So what are you looking forward to the most?
I think seeing the Eiffel Tower will be pretty cool. And also Dachau, the concentration camp. That's kind of really interesting. Yeah.
How many counselors are going?
4. I believe I wrote that somewhere.
That's on here.
Yeah, it's the bottom. Miss Daisy,
Oh,
Miss
okay.
Luco, Mr. Serino, and Mr. Holzman. And I believe Miss Luco is bringing her mother-in-law, and she's a nurse.
She's a nurse.
Yeah, so she's coming, so 5.
And Miss Luco actually did was it over?
Yeah, she went over during February break,
Right,
and she did like the EF training, so like she knows like where we're going and stuff like that.
yeah. She's really stressing comfortable shoes, comfortable shoes.
I think the day is pretty packed.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's going to be much time for us to roam around, which is probably the better
And you'll have
better option.
you'll have the support and the experience of EF because they've been running these trips for about 50 years.
Yeah.
So that doesn't mean that everything goes well, it just means that
Yeah.
this is not new to this
No.
group that's providing the educational tour to Abington.
And we are actually traveling with, I think there's 35 of us going. We're traveling with another group of 15 from Maine, because we didn't have enough size to like fill out the buses or fill out the hotels. So we'll be with that group too, all throughout everything.
That's cool.
Yeah,
It'll be interesting.
yeah.
You guys will be back sometime with a presentation in front of the school
Yeah,
committee?
definitely.
Awesome.
Take a ton of pictures.
Well, have fun.
Thank you.
You're gonna try fish and chips?
I don't like them.
I knew it.
I actually said that at the meeting, because we have a planned dinner.
Yeah.
Dinner and breakfast is provided, and lunch we can kind of get what we want. But they said we may have to try some stuff.
You have to when you're over there.
It's a good learning
Yeah.
experience.
No Burger King.
No, I know.
Well, thank you. It'd be nice to see some pictures when you come back. So we're gonna jump back under unfinished business. We have the superintendent of schools 2013 to 2014 evaluation. And just to sort of get us up to speed here, at the last meeting, I had presented an original version of the evaluation, and after some conversation with committee members requesting copies of other committee members' comments, we received an opinion from our attorney who said that it was all right to share those communications. And so I've gone back and tweaked my original evaluation, which everybody has in their packet, and they received those along with each individual committee member's comments as well. So I'm not going to read the entire evaluation. I'm just going to probably touch on some points here, and then we can talk about it if the committee's all right with that. I'll just start off with the first paragraph. As chair of the Abington School Committee, I am charged with writing a summary evaluation, which is a culmination of the different viewpoints of the committee regarding Superintendent Schaefer's school year 2013 to 2014 evaluation. In order to do this, I've included the communication provided to me via email by Ms. Kathy Bailey, Mr. Paul Haggerty, Mrs. Ellen Killian, and Mr. Michael Kurowski. And just as a refresher, Mrs. O'Neill was not on the committee at the time. That's why she did not include information. The annual evaluation of the superintendent of schools' performances shall be based on a cooperative process intended to improve the quality of education and the effectiveness of school administration. With input from the committee, the superintendent will establish annual goals and objectives which relate to the superintendent's leadership, relationship with people, management performance, and the development of a total school district program. The superintendent's annual written evaluation will take into consideration the superintendent's performance and progress in meeting the established goals and objectives. Mr. Schaefer presented his 2 goals to the school committee for approval for school year 2014. These goals were approved by the school committee on September 23rd, 2013. And I have included in here the minutes from the meeting of September 23rd, 2013, where these goals were approved. And then on page 2, this is just a couple of paragraphs here. The committee overall had praise for Mr. Schaefer's effective communication skills. He's thoughtful and consistent on his communication with the school committee and the community. This was especially demonstrated during this past year with the successful approval by the town of Abington for the building of a new middle high school. The committee recognized Mr. Schaefer's involvement in meeting with numerous organizations, state officials, town departments, and the community at large to get this done. Some areas that were recognized as goals to be worked towards are policy development and budget and reporting capabilities. The committee understands that both the state and the federal government continue to add and revise policies and add mandates without providing funding. And this is a direct quote, "Many hard decisions must be made in the best interest of the students of Abington while addressing the concerns of the taxpayers of Abington." The committee also acknowledged the need to continue to advocate for funding for technology to ensure that the students of Abington are given the best tools to help them succeed in their daily education, as well as to comply with the technology requirements surrounding state-mandated testing. Overall, the committee feels that Mr. Schaefer has proven to be an effective leader who puts the students of Abington first. And this is another quote, "The job of superintendent for Mr. Schaefer is not about the title, it is about the students and the quality of their public education." And then on page 3, this was just the process and how we get there. And then you have goal 1 and goal 2, and as well as the indicators and the scoring on that. I'm more than happy to read those, or we can read through them and talk about it. Anybody has any comments or thoughts?
No, I don't think you need to really go read through each one of these individual, but I mean, I think overall, it projects what Peter has done for that particular school year, 2013, 2014. So, I'm in well agreement of what the comments and suggestions are under those 2 goals.
Any other thoughts?
Can I just add on goal 1 and goal 2? Maybe underneath the chart, just a little asterisk, I just put Mr. Hagy chose not to score Mr. Schaefer on goal 1, and then Mr. Hagy chose not to score. Because if you look at the numbers, that there's 4 people doing the evaluation, only 3 scored.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I did the evaluation, but I just didn't
Yeah.
use that. So I just don't want it.
Right, that's good. And we'll put that under the box on each of those. Does anybody else have anything, or?
Yeah, I guess,
I'd like to just say thanks to everybody for all the patience and help with this. And we'd be looking for a...
I have to thank Ellen for doing this too, so.
Okay. So we'd be looking for a motion to accept this as Peter's evaluation.
Make a motion to accept the evaluation
I'll second
as
it.
amended.
I can't.
Right. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
If I, as Paul had mentioned, this is going to lead right into the next discussion, but I can't leave this one without thanking the committee, not only for their the positive elements of this, but then also for the suggestions for improvement, because everyone can improve. And along with that, I need to thank the people that I work with, people at this table, and then all of the principals and the teachers and the support staff in the Abington Public Schools. Because any successes that I feel that have occurred here in Abington are a direct result of the work that they do. And again, it doesn't mean that there isn't room for improvement in any system or in any individual. There certainly is, and we're going to talk about those as I think we talk about the next section and the goals for the coming year. But I just needed to I want to acknowledge this committee and then all of the faculty and staff in the Abington Public Schools, because it's a good system, and people do, even this, as you saw in the student presentations tonight, people work very hard for kids in the system, and that's the most important thing. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so under the report of the superintendent of schools, we have item B, 2014 to 2015 superintendent of schools goals.
So what I have for you is what you've seen previously. And it's very important to note, and I'll touch on each of these, that a lot of this is based on feedback from the evaluation process, that comments that individual members made in the last section, because this is about improvement. As much as it is nice to get a good evaluation, it's about continually improving, because it's about improving a system that provides service to kids. And so that's got to be the continual focus. And so these are focused on student achievement and improvement goals that everything we touch has an impact on the students we serve. Even as you see, we'll get into budget and finance, all of that. If it doesn't come back to the service provided to students in Abington, then there's no point in talking about it. And so everything here relates directly back to that. So I'll also just mention to you, so this was based on feedback from the previous evaluation. And then this has been out there for committee members, and I've invited, I'm still encouraging people to give me more feedback on this. And I did get additional feedback on these goals, but I did not get them, I got them after this agenda was put together and published. So although I'm going to ask you, what I'd like to do is, even though I'm going to outline these to you tonight, there are other ways to craft these goals that I think are better language. And so I may even ask if I could send that to you after this meeting, but maybe just touch on overall what each of these is about. And I don't need to spend a lot of time on it, but just briefly touch on each goal and then send you a revision, and then ask maybe at the next meeting if people would consider a revised copy, so it's specific to exactly what all of the feedback I've gotten. So, because I think it's good feedback. So the first goal is a student learning goal, and that's to show improvement in achievement across the Abington Public Schools in all grade levels. Now here what I've done is I've specifically broken it down into the median student growth percentile, and different from last year, I've added language about the high needs subgroup in the Abington Public Schools, making progress there. These were very aggressive goals. They continue to be aggressive goals. I would, as a superintendent of schools in a public school system, I would think that the most important thing, other than obviously student safety and well-being, is the achievement goal. And so this will continue, and but again, I'd like to give you a revision of language about that. And I can bring that, I can email it to people, as I said. Under professional practice,
Can I just ask, as far as the measurement, do we need that measurement of the 51% or better in there? Because we had it this year, and one, you met, and the other one you didn't. But if there's no sort of, without lack of a better term, consequences for not meeting it, what's the point of having it, as long as we see that there's progress being made? So to artificially set a number, rather than set a number, just the expectation that we'll see improvement. Because there's a lot of variables that are outside of your control.
and I agree with you. And at the same time, as a professional, even if that language isn't included in my goal, that's going to be my goal for this system, because I feel that's important as I look at our data, because that is an aggressive goal, and that's just where I want us to be. And I want to be that professional that continues to set aggressive goals for the work that they do. And so it doesn't need to be in that goal, but please know, in the back of my mind, as I look at our scores, that's what I'm going to look for.
Yeah, and I think as our superintendent, we wouldn't expect anything less. So whether it's 49 or 51 or 60, you're always going to strive for improvement.
Right.
And to artificially set a number, which there is so many variables that are outside of your control, from one year to the next, it's sort of, to me, I don't understand to set it, to say, well, you're 51, but you missed it. What does that mean? I don't know what it means. As long as we see that there's improvement, we're not taking, 3 steps back.
And internally, I'm going to continue to use data to measure, to strive, to look to improve. Because if I see we made 50 instead of 51 in math, for example, or maybe we made math, which we did. We made the math goal, and we made the English goal, and we missed the math goal. It helps provide focus in terms of the effort that needs to, the things that need to be done in math. So I continue to use that data to inform decisions, to emphasize work and focus work done in the system. So yes, I agree, and I'm still going to use internal benchmarks to drive the work I do, if that makes sense.
Thank you.
Yeah, I guess on that point, I'll agree that Peter needs to keep internal numbers. As an engineer, I like to see numbers. I mean, that's just, but I will abide by what the overall committee agrees to. But I do like to see numbers, just from my background in what I do, so.
Yeah,
I have no issue in removing the numbers, but I know I will be talking with Peter about, where he stands and how we're doing, probably a little more closely if there are no numbers on the evaluation, on the goal setting.
And you've asked me a lot of good questions about numbers, Mike, and, those numbers will continue to be there as we do our work.
Well, I think the other point of having the numbers in here, and frankly, I don't care whether they are in there or not, as long as we're looking at improving the level that the kids are coming from at this point. But in creating a SMART goal, the M is for measurement. It has to be measurable. And I think part of the reason for having numbers in there is then you can measure what your accomplishment is. But 51% is a high standard to try to achieve in 1 year. But it's a goal that should be out there ongoing.
Other questions on the student achievement goal or comments? Thank you. Professional practice. States backing away from district-determined measures, they're slowing down with district-determined measures. It doesn't mean that it's not a valid element to add to the practices of teachers and the system. And so that data that they use, the way I'm describing data that I will use to drive instruction in a classroom, is a way to improve student achievement. And that professional practice goal needs to occur across our district. So that I want to continue to have that be an element in my goals. want to comment or talk about that at all?
Well, can you just clarify, as far as district-determined measures, saying that the state's moving away from it?
I shouldn't have said that. They're slowing down on it.
Slowing, okay,
Big difference.
Maybe I
Yep.
made that.
No, I
moving away
think I
from it.
said that.
But even if they're slowing down on it, is this just another example of, putting something out there for you to work on, and then you start working on it, it's like, well, let's slow down on that and maybe think about something else, that it just creates another layer in your world and for the administration and staff to have to deal with?
So it's, if you're a music teacher, you're determining, for example, the qualities that you're going to, or what are students going to know or be able to do as a result of your music instruction. So tone, pitch, positioning, work that they would do. So what's happening is people are coming up with measurements of those elements, and then doing an assessment of where students are, setting goals for where they want them to be, and then measuring their success toward those goals. And the same is done, I picked I think one of the more complicated areas, music. Art, the same things are being done in reading with students that may decode text at this level, and their fluency is at a different level, so that they can focus their instruction better on what students need. It's a way to do a diagnosis of what the students need in front of you to improve their achievement. So those are good things to do. And so the state, if I'm going to be critical of the state, it would be that they rolled it out too quickly, they choked it down people's throats, and they're slowing down so that it can be done more meaningfully. Because we're all, in all the 351 communities, we're all just trying to catch up. And to do it quickly means you're not doing it effectively, which, what's the point if you're not doing it well? So we're just trying to do it better.
I think the district-determined measures also keep us from judging a student based on one test. Too often, MCAS was the be-all and end-all in terms of a student, and there are many students that just don't test well, and through the district-determined measures, there's another way of looking at that student and determining their progress, a more well-rounded way of looking at a student.
To that point, it's like we stop, if you pass the 10th grade MCAS, we're not done with you. You still have to go through 11th, 12th grade, right, Sam?
Yeah.
I mean, that was there for you. So, what are, in the absence of the MCAS test in grade 11 and 12, what are we doing? So it's not that grades aren't happening, people are grading, but this helps drive that instruction across the district, pre-K through 12.
Can I just ask then, what were we doing, when did district-determined measures come in, and what were we using before?
We were using, Dimon and Felicia, feel free to help me. We were using we were, first it started with individual classrooms, and we used assessments based on curriculum and content, and then we started shifting towards more common assessments across grade levels and different standardized tests, and this is the next generation. Is that fair? How many years ago? 3 years ago for Race to the Top districts?
I think it's fair. I think it's basically a new name because it's the new evaluation.
Okay.
So there's always been assessments in place. It's just now that it's linked to educator effectiveness, and they're rated on that, as well as, all the superintendents and all of us.
Okay.
That's the piece that the state's slowing down, is how the district determined measures are tied into educator evaluation.
Okay, thank you.
The next piece is to address professional development in classroom assessments and practices, grading, effective use of data to inform instruction, and the use of instructional technology in the classroom. So, as we walk toward opening a new building, we want to make sure that there's an emphasis on the use of best practice use of technology in the classroom. I think that's a fairly obvious one. And the professional development on classroom assessments and practices and grading and effective use of data really goes back and ties, again, back to that, a little bit to district-determined measures. But this is broader than just district-determined measures. This is all grading practices, classroom expectations, and the way we're assessing our delivery of the curriculum. To work on the alignment and the update with the committee of our policy manual and handbooks, to make sure that those are up to date. We have a meeting on March 30th that Kathy and Paul, we've got MASC coming out, that's part of this. But this is all policy documents, all handbooks in the Abington Public Schools. Make sure they're reflective of the regulations and the best practices in Massachusetts public schools.
So what is the meeting on March 30th?
March 30th, the school committees contracted the services of MASC,
Yep.
the Massachusetts Association of School Committees, and Jim Hardy
Yep.
is their field rep. He'll be coming out and meeting with myself and Paul and Kathy to begin the process and do an overview of the process of alignment of our policies and review of all of our policies. And then what happens from that group, items are brought back to the full committee for consideration before they go into effect. And then committee has a chance to deliberate on it, and then those items are posted publicly, and they're used, and we use practices and protocols in the district that best administer those policies as determined by the school committee.
And the meeting on the 30th, that's going to be your first get-together with
It's
him.
the first one.
Yep.
It took a while because poor Mrs. Minahan had stacks of paper that they needed, that MASC had to take time to input and digitize, and even though we had it 90–80% of it in electronic format, they still wanted paper copies to digitize it.
And Mrs. Minahan did an outstanding job.
Thank you, Paul.
It was a tough chore.
Thank
But
you.
she really did do a great job on it.
Thank you.
And this, all our meetings on this are all public meetings.
They're all
Right.
public meetings. Yep.
Posted.
Yep.
Make sure that compliment gets in the minutes, Teresa.
You said it.
The next one is to addresses the clarity and the transparency of the school department's budget and finance reporting documents, including documents which communicate anticipated and unanticipated challenges. This has been the anticipated and unanticipated financial challenges in the funding of the public school in Abington has been difficult. And documents that better describe and flow into each other are an area that can only help us in meeting those financial challenges. So what we want to do is match the district's capabilities with the structure and functions that we have, with what the state requires, with a total review of of best practices. And then the next one addresses communication of the school department's mission, achievements, and successes. The fact that Abington has a good public school system shouldn't be a secret, and it's not that there aren't things that we need to work on. We talked about that earlier, but you know, I'm proud. I think we're proud of our students and their accomplishments, and work is always done in this area. I know that our schools have Twitter accounts, and there are emails, and there's an improved website. It seems as though we continue to add different tools, and we need to continue to do that.
So again, this is another one of those ongoing, on a yearly basis, which always should be part of it.
So I don't, in terms of the intention and the reflection and the suggestions, there aren't, I don't anticipate there'll be grand changes to this, but I think there are improvements in language that better describe it that I can send to people. And I should note, I've been working on these already, so it's not like I'm going to stop working and wait a month for you guys to consider these. So there's nothing lost in bringing them back for another round, if that's okay. Questions?
No.
Thank you.
So we're not looking for a motion then because you're gonna bring back a revision. Okay. And people, their questions, they'll just follow up with you.
Yeah, thank you, because I wanted to mention that. I still want to hear from people if they have suggestions, and I'll send out, like I said, I'll send out another draft, and upon reading that, please call me. I'm willing to meet, email, however people want to review them. I'm looking for your feedback.
And then next meeting, we can talk about FY16 too.
Yeah, we can get started on those. Can we continue on with that?
Yep,
Okay.
please.
So the next thing I have is the communication from the Abington School Building Committee. You saw this you saw this question about this property at a previous meeting. This property is the property known throughout the good land as 500 Brockton Avenue. However, because there's no dwelling or actual mailing address that's 500 Brockton Avenue, it's more accurately described as 0 Brockton Ave and 0 Linwood Street. Having said that, any piece of property on Brockton Ave and Linwood Street that doesn't have a mailing address or a dwelling on it is 0 Linwood Ave or Brockton Ave or Linwood Street. However, this is the way that the assessor's office told me best describes the property. And in case there's any confusion, the language around this and the book and page in the Plymouth County Registry of Deeds is specific to this and only this piece of property, which is technically 2 pieces of property in the same connected. So at a previous meeting, it was suggested that because the Abington School Building Committee had spent quite a bit of time looking at the use of property owned by the town and other pieces of property in Abington, that they provide a recommendation on this piece of property being turned back to the town before the school committee takes a vote on it being turned back over, whether or not the school committee would like to do that. So enclosed in your packet is a letter from Richard Testa, the chairman of the Abington School Building Committee, and there was a unanimous vote on this question at our last school building committee meeting. Dear members of the Abington School Committee, as the property under the control of the Abington School Department described as 0 Linwood Street and 0 Brockton Ave do not have a foreseeable, useful school purpose, the Abington School Building Committee unanimously voted on Tuesday, March 10th, 2015, to recommend that control be relinquished back to the town of Abington. So you have a motion here. You have a recommendation on a motion for consideration tonight, turning this piece of property back to the town. Just also, you've got in your packet the actual information from the assessor's office. Just to remind people, this is a wooded area, a small area with a wetland area right down the middle of it, behind Walmart. And I believe that back in about 1958, it was provided to the school department from the town. It was anticipated that an elementary school would be built there for that end of town. And as there's no, again, useful purpose for that piece of land in the foreseeable future, it's an asset to the town of Abington that should go back to the town of Abington. That would be my recommendation to you.
And this would, depending on how this action is taken tonight, then when at town meeting, we would turn it back over to the town, and then they can decide to accept it, or how does that work?
At this point, it's out of the control of the school committee, and that's up to, I don't believe it needs to go back to town meeting, but I'm going to leave that to the town manager and town council.
It just becomes theirs.
Yeah. at
I
this
think what
point.
would have to go to town meeting would be if the selectmen determined to do something with that property after we return it back to them. Then it would have to go to town meeting.
My information from town council is that this is the language voted, this stops your stewardship, your responsibility or your control of that land, and it's back in the hands of the town. So,
Any more discussion or questions? So we'd be looking for a motion to declare that the parcel of land located at 500 Brockton Ave and being a portion of the land acquired by the town by order of record with the Plymouth Registry of Deeds in Book 2594, page 316, is no longer needed for school purposes and authorizes the superintendent to report the same to the Board of Selectmen.
Make a motion.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
if we have any swampland in Florida, we can turn that over. The next item on the agenda is the Reeds, it's a request for an appointment to the Reeds Board of Directors. Different than the North River Collaborative, the Reeds Collaborative has superintendents serving on their Board of Directors. And so in order for me to be able to do that, I need your permission to do that. And that's what this recommended action is. We got this annual report from Reeds. I certainly don't expect people to digest this tonight, and this is really independent of this decision, but it is an annual report from Reeds, and we are a member of Reeds Collaborative, and so that came to us 2 days ago. So we thought we'd just provide it to people tonight. We can provide it electronically if you want. We do not have, we primarily use Reeds Collaborative for evaluation services. We do not use Reeds the way that North River Collaborative is used, for lots of reasons. The students' needs in terms of the educational services provided, we experience more of that service at North River Collaborative than Reeds. Reeds doesn't provide a lot of those services that our students that we're sending out for that help get. The other reason is probably distance. They're a little further away. But because Abington, it's always an option for Abington, and Abington has participated in this collaborative, and in the future we could potentially use them more often. It's been something that I've wanted to make sure we maintain our membership in good standing. So this just appoints me to be a part of that group for Reeds Collaborative.
How many people do we typically have there to be evaluated on a yearly?
We have actually only one student that attends there, but we have many students that are evaluated through the Reeds Clinic.
Does anybody have any other questions or discussion?
No?
So, be looking for a motion to appoint Peter G. Schaefer to serve as the Abington Public Schools representative on the Board of Directors of Reeds Collaborative in accordance with the Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 40, Section 4E, as amended by Chapter 43 of the Acts of 2012 for the 2015-2016 school year.
Make that motion.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And just so people know, this does not pay any money, in case somebody's watching on cable. It doesn't. People might wonder that. Dates to remember?
Yep.
So under dates to remember, we have March 30th, as I mentioned earlier, is the first meeting of the Policy Review Subcommittee. That is posted, and it is a public meeting. April 1st, we have an in-service early release day. April 1st is the Green Wave Boosters meeting at the police station in the community room at 7 p.m. On April 14th, the music parents are meeting at Abington High School at 7 p.m. On April 16th, we have a school building committee meeting at the police department in the community room at 6 p.m. The 20th of April is Patriots' Day. All school offices and buildings will be closed. April 20th to the 24th is the spring vacation break. Saturday, the 25th, Abington Town elections at Abington High School from 8 a.m. until 6 p.m. Tuesday, April 28th is the next regular school committee meeting, scheduled at 7 p.m. And on Wednesday, April 29th, is the MASC Day on the Hill. There's a registration people will be available to people. We can take care of that if people would like to go. There's a breakfast there at 8:45. That's a day where we've gone and spoken to our legislators about some of the things we talk about here and hope that they hear us on things from funding to different mandates that come from the Department of Education. And I've always been told that you have an opportunity to be a voice, and so you should take advantage of that opportunity. So we've gone every year and scheduled appointments, and they've sat down and given us time and listened to us. We can. I plan on going in with anyone who would like to go in, and just you can let us know whenever you'd like.
I'm planning on attending again. You can go? Yeah.
And then just added, not on these dates, but certainly under the calendar is just so people are aware of what's going on with spring sports. If you look out the window, there's about 1.5 to 2 feet of snow and ice on all of the playing fields. So what the MIAA has done is they've backed up, they've extended, they haven't backed it up, I should be careful how I describe this. They've extended the playing season by 1 week. However, some of those games that were previously scheduled are going to occur. For example, I know that our girls lacrosse team is going to be going to North Quincy soon. I don't know if it's next week, but fairly soon, and they have not had a practice on a playing field yet. They've been practicing in the parking lots. They've been practicing in the gymnasium spaces that we have to the extent possible, because there's just no place to practice. It wasn't our decision, but I do believe it was a good decision. If we were to go about clearing snow off of fields, if the DPW were to do that with Park and Recreation, it's likely that the damage that would occur would be further prohibitive in terms of kids playing sports. You can't clear snow and ice off a wet field without damaging the grass. And so hopefully the temperatures will go up quickly now. I know we're getting a little rain. That'll knock down the snow, and we'll put our athletes out in the fields as soon as we can. So.
And it is an advantage to any of those school systems that have turf fields, because those can be fairly easily cleared.
Most of the systems that have turf fields have not cleared them. Some have, because it costs between $15,000 and $20,000 to clear a turf field. So there are places that have outdoor turf fields that are cleared, but they are very few. So, and they're being used quite a bit, those that have cleared them, because there's no place to play.
And so we still have April vacation, and our last day of school is?
It's anticipated that the recommendation, and this is I'm 99.9% sure, we're gonna add the 19th of June as the last day of school. But we had delayed fixing that date certain, but wanted to tell people that's likely the dates for planning purposes, because, I mean, it snowed Saturday, I think. It was snowing pretty hard. So, I mean, we got to be done.
We had a famous April Fool's Day storm years ago, so.
We're getting close, please.
That was 18 years ago, that April Fool's Day storm.
Yeah.
As long as Sam can get on his plane on the 17th, that's all that matters.
So, that's all I have under dates to remember.
All right, so Anybody else have anything?
No.
Thank you. Next, we have the report of the Assistant Superintendent for Pupil Personnel Services, Dr. Thomas.
Good evening. So the first item is the additional home education. I'm requesting a motion to approve the 2 homeschool students, and one is in kindergarten and one is in grade 4. So all documentation has been processed. We currently have 23 homeschool students, and plus these 2 would make it 25. Any questions? Okay. Motion?
Make the motion?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Great,
Leslie?
thank you.
Yes.
Next, the next 3 are all informational items, professional development update. We had our March 4th PD Day for in-service, and we had a variety of things going on at the building level. At the elementary level, there were a variety of conversations regarding student placement, Common Core crosswalk, follow-up, creating common lessons by grade level using the crosswalks, and then assessment and content literacy, as well as MCAS administration training and student engagement strategies using vocabulary. At the middle and high school level, we had departments all working on curriculum work. Any specific questions on that?
How much in-service do we have left this year?
2 days.
2 days?
Yep.
2 half-days?
Yeah, sorry,
Yeah.
yep. We only have 1 day that's,
Right.
yeah, so I think it's April 1st and May 6th, if I am correct. Thanks, Teresa. Okay. And then I did want to do a follow-up. I know that I privately spoke with many of you at the meeting that we had here with finance and everyone else because Michael Shackelford had been in that week. It was a disappointing professional development 2 days with Michael Shackelford, but I'm happy to report that Abington Public Schools did get a complete refund.
Oh, good.
So I just wanted to give you that update. I know many of you I was chatting with, but any questions on that?
So what does that do for us? Now that, do we start over?
Yeah, we're approaching it that, I mean, it's the same topics in terms of looking at assessments, and that is a common thread with all the work that we do. I think he did a really, my own opinion, and I think others will share the same, is he did a really nice job in October, but then came and basically did the same upon return and was unprepared. And so we've moved on from that. However, conversation's still going to be taking place regarding assessments. And then looking at, you know, you have to dive deeper into the assessment piece, you know, and have the conversations not only about assessments broadly, but then grading, and what do you believe in grading, and how do you grade, and all those things that you were present, both of you were present at that first meeting in October. So we'll be continuing to have that. In terms of having a facilitator to do that, such as Michael Shackelford, that's still up for debate, but the conversations will be taking place within the Abington Public Schools.
Did he give any explanation of like what happened? Like, I mean, how do you go from being spot on in October to showing up? And because I mean, even after the session, the way he was talking, I was like, it's important to follow this up and make sure you keep the momentum going. And then he was the momentum killer.
Well, what he did, he just did the same thing again over. I mean, just, it was like,
Yeah,
it was like the same, it was like watching the same show twice. It was the exact same show.
it's a one-trick pony, though. I mean, it's like,
So it's still a good show, but the message was still good, but we didn't need it twice.
right.
I think that what happened was that, exactly how you both described it, however, as he described that he could take it to the next level, he was unable to take it to the next level. And I did not, I spent 2 days with him and a lot of hours with him in terms of prepping, but my conversations after that were with the person that I contracted with and not with him.
Okay.
So, I mean, we want to be critical consumers, and if we're not going to get a bang for that buck,
Oh, I was.
Dimna was able to get us
She's
a
so good.
refund.
I'm still not over it. So let's move on.
No, but we don't want to lose the message with the messenger. We want to continue on with this work. Just because that experience wasn't bad doesn't mean that the work was bad. But we're just going to find there are other professional development opportunities in and out of the district, literature, reviews, and work to be done on it.
Yeah, and people were responsive to it. I mean, staff was eager to be engaged.
Right.
They wanted to, so that was very important to see, and it's just unfortunate that he couldn't.
And this
Build on that.
this is a tough thing to move in a faculty, because when you're talking about grading, it's a sacred area. So it's not just as simple as saying, well, do it this way. You're talking about their fundamental philosophies on what they think is the best practice in terms of doing the right thing for kids. Because we all agree we want to do what's best for kids, but we all come in a different way. So.
Great. Any questions on professional development?
For getting us our refund.
You're welcome.
Take you to Macy's with me the next time.
All right, so next item, informational also is CPAC, the Special Education Council for Parents. And just an update is I'm still waiting for the paperwork, and I'm hoping that the paperwork will all come in, and then we can have an election sometime, in April is the goal. And then lastly, we had our Wellness Advisory Committee, and I want to thank Denise Boyd for her leadership in this area. And Ellen, as well as myself, attended that meeting, and there was a variety of conversations. This is an advisory committee that meets yearly, a few times actually, 4 times a year, at different stages, and there's a variety of representation from the district level, of course, with staff and students. There's also community outreach, and then we had school committee rep as well as our director of food services, myself. So the focus is really on nutritional guidelines, any things that are changing, getting feedback from students about what they like to eat, what will motivate them to buy more food and things of that sort. I'm talking about certain grants that may be applicable. And Ellen, I know you wanted to jump in.
No, I thought it was interesting to hear the high school kids talk about the things that they get excited about. I never knew we had a waffle bar at the high school.
I didn't know that either.
Did you know that?
Is there a place to buy waffles
I
and
know,
they call it a waffle bar?
yeah. But it was, it's just interesting to hear the different. You served it?
I did one time.
Really?
Pretty exciting. Kids liked it.
And we just, it's always fun to hear from the kids to get their impression of things, whether it's salad or sandwiches or pizza. The survey that Matt's student council did at Woodsdale, I thought that was interesting. The 2 highest votes were for foods that included bacon or pie. So
I didn't vote.
you didn't vote. And no squid. And Bernie thought, well, maybe he could do quiche, because that would be pie that has bacon in it. So, and they talked about maybe doing theme days to get the kids excited, whether it's a Red Sox type day and doing a hot dog bar, different things like that. And as Dimpna mentioned, one of the grants that we were able to do through Beaverbrook, they received a $4,000 grant that part of that was used to buy a smoothie machine that they use at breakfast, I think, fruit smoothies. So.
And also a thank you to that committee, because they've all been involved in a recent audit, as well as there is numerous, and Felicia can speak to it better than myself, in terms of the requirements for, in particular, nutrition. Bernie always updates us. Bernie does explain the logic behind why we can't have all that good stuff all the time in schools. So a lot of work goes into, you'd be amazed how much work goes into regulations following the nutritional. Right, Felicia?
Yep.
That's all I had.
Me too.
Thank you.
Great, thanks.
Thank you.
Next we have Ms. Booth.
I'll just continue on a little bit about the food service program. Last week, the food service program did undergo an audit with the Department of Education, Elementary and Secondary Education, because we received federal grants related to the free and reduced lunch reimbursement. We went through their audit, which reviews not only free and reduced lunch applications, also reviews nutrition, menu planning. They were the woman was at the buildings watching the serving, watching the collection of funds, reconciliation of money, and I did a exit meeting with her on Friday afternoon, and very, very positive around our food service program, and understands that because of the federal guidelines, that our hands are very much tied in terms of menu and food options. As we've talked about before, healthy foods are great, but they cost more money, and kids don't necessarily want healthy options at lunchtime. So the meals do cost more money to produce, and the options that kids want aren't necessarily there. So Bernie, I'd like to thank Bernie Darcy for all his work in preparation for that, and also the people that work in the cafeterias play a great role in our food service program. And that actually leads me into the second, which is the school building committee update. And just today, I met with Bernie and the kitchen consultant and the professional team regarding the building project and the cafeteria and the servery, and how because our facilities are, obviously our current facilities are dated, and the high school options and how the layout can't be changed, and same with the Frollo cafeteria, and how the new cafeteria and serving areas and preparation areas are just going to be so wonderful and provide so many different types of options for kids, not only for purchase, but also display, and the number of lines that kids can go to and pick up food. And Bernie left there very excited about the possibilities of expanding program. It's still obviously going to be central kitchen. Things will be made at the high school, or at middle school, high school cafeteria, and sent to the Woodsdale in Beaverbrook as is done now. But I think that the options in terms of what will be available in 5 through 12 is going to be great.
That's exciting.
It's very exciting. And to be with some, we've been living this project, and to sit with Bernie, for example, who hasn't really lived the project, who's seen pictures but not really been intimately involved, he left there so excited. And it was like we kind of did at the very beginning with, oh my God, this is going to be so great. And it was nice to see him so excited about it. In other information in terms of the school building committee, we're continuing our programming meetings like we had today with food service. We have technology and security meetings coming up this week. We're continuing our Friday morning working group sessions that the professional team brings back information and then kind of talked about in the working group and then brought to the whole committee when we meet monthly with the whole building committee. The professional team is currently working on their 60% construction documents, and those will be submitted to the MSBA in May, and we're still on track for early fall bid and to break ground in January.
And maybe it won't snow like it did this year.
Yeah, we got all the snow this year, no snow next year. And it is important to mention, though, that part of the bid specs do talk about winter conditions. There are some things that obviously can't be done in the winter, but there are many, many things that we wouldn't even think of that can still be done in the winter. And part of the construction documents will include winter conditions.
Is that the earliest you can break ground is January?
Correct. Well, the bid it'll go out to bid. It's expected to go out to bid in the middle of September, with bids coming back the end of October, early November. Because it's such a complex bid document, you have to give the vendors enough time to really produce an accurate bid. And then we'll name the general contractor. Sub-bids are submitted during the summer, so they get pre-qualified as sub-bidders, and then it rolls into the full construction bid, and then barring any bid protests, the general contractor usually needs about 4 weeks to set up. Fencing, equipment, materials, et cetera.
Is there a maximum timeline from when the bid goes out to when they have to have a?
Oh, it'll be a deadline. It'll be
Is
a
there
big
45
deadline.
days, 60 days? Or
It's not specified by the state. It'll be specified in the bid documents. And I believe, I don't want to quote an exact day, number of days, between 30 and 45. And they want to make sure that the general contractors have enough time to do very specific calculations.
And when you submit that 60% build plan in May,
Yep.
does the MSBA have to get back to you within a certain amount of time?
They
with it?
do. It's very, this whole process is very calculated and deliberate in terms of timelines, and you submit to them, they have 10 days to return to you, you have 10 days to return back to them. And meanwhile, and this happened with the design documents, you submit 60%, but you're still working on your 90%. In the time of the document review, then you're reporting back, the professional team's reporting back to the MSBA on questions that MSBA had, and you might make some tweaks. There's a cost estimate that happens at 60%, then there's another cost estimate at 90% as well. And we've had one cost estimate, well, it's done by 2 independent cost estimators for the design development.
And in between, there are meetings, there are the program meetings that Felicia described, because what happens is you sit and you look at the diagram, and the professional team leaves and comes back with the suggested improvements, and then you look at it, and then you review it again to make sure that's exactly what you meant. Then there are other renderings that they provide you that give you you were going to go there anyway? But it's a multi, each step has smaller incremental steps inside of it to check the work to make sure it's what you want.
And so the final kind of exciting thing that's happened with the school building committee over the last few weeks is the design team has been able to provide renderings of the different spaces. So we're talking about them, we see them on paper, we suggest tweaks, they suggest tweaks, and now they've come up with boards, that have what they think we've been talking about for what it will look like. And looking at those renderings, we've said, well, I don't think we thought this is what this was going to look like, or what about that? And so there's been many, many conversations based on the renderings, which has been really powerful. I don't know, Kathy, did you want to?
Yeah, it's, what's really interesting is you still have the opportunity to make these little changes. You've got this beautiful rendering of what the inside of a room is going to look like, and you look at it and say, I don't know if that little corner over there, if that's going to really work. How can we change that and make that work better? And they do. They come back next week with a change, with something you can do, and it's really exciting to see how it's progressing and to make sure that every single detail is perfect. And we're really getting down to the nitty-gritty and the little tiny details now.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that's, I just want to say thank you to Jason Lynn, our Director of Maintenance, who has also spent a lot of time with the prints, with the renderings, with the design documents, because not only do we want to build a beautiful building, we also want to build a beautiful building that functions for our students, but also operationally works well for our maintenance department and our custodial staff. And whether it's floor coverings or windows that don't go all the way down to the ground, that should come up 6 inches off the ground so a machine isn't going to hit them if it's doing the floor. Those types of things that the maintenance and custodial staff really will appreciate later on.
So you sit in a room with 10 people that all have a difference. It's like inviting 10 people over to help you design your kitchen. And you talk about it. And for example, like at the last meeting, there was a display board that came out of the wall for people to look at displays, or for student work to be represented, and it came out of the wall 3-4 inches. And the point was made by Jason that the smoother those walls are without things coming out of the walls, the easier it is for the custodian to clean, because when you strip a floor, then you have to wax a floor, you're in the corner with a scraper. So there are going to be corners in the room, but that's the specificity of these design conversations, to create a building that isn't only that we're all proud of, but one that's we're able to best maintain and operate.
So there's been, lots of discussions around flooring material and wall material, and, it's a balance between the cost of the building material and then the long-term cost of maintenance. So those are, and we've talked about this before too, I think our professional team is second to none. AI3, our architect, and KBA, our owners project managers, I really feel like are giving us great information, or giving us the names of other people in buildings that they've built, buildings that they know, schools that they know about, and having us have conversations with them. Any questions?
Do we know when the town is first going to go out for their first set of money that's going to come into?
They have. I know that Leo Provost, town treasurer, has gone out and done a short-term bond for the first chunk. During this phase, we've already, we spent about almost $3 million in this design phase.
Obviously, with you guys watch the same news that we all watch, the faster we get the money borrowed, the better the interest rate, because it's not going to go down. It's only going to go up. And then the construction costs are not going to go down. They're only going to go up. So we are absolutely going out as fast as we can, because as fast as you can, as Felicia said, following that prescription that MSBA has for you without delay. You can't move through it faster than that.
You can't short-term bond, and there's a window of how many months you can short-term bond before you can roll it into a long bond, and you don't want to pay interest on money that's sitting in the bank waiting to be spent. So one of the items that I provide to Leo monthly is the cash flow projection that is provided to us by KBA, the owner's project manager, and also goes to the MSBA. And it hasn't changed very much, but just to make sure that we're still on track with our spending. So he knows how much to borrow and what time. Is it before the end of the fiscal year? Is it the beginning of the next fiscal year? How much? What's the bundle this time? Can he roll in? Any other questions? FY16 budget update. We continue to work with the finance team at Town Hall in the development of the overall town budget. There's still some, we're not entirely clear on the impact of snow and ice on FY16's budget. We do have another meeting on Thursday with the town's finance team, and hopefully we can get some more information regarding that. Dimpton and I continue to evaluate special education placements for both students that are in district now, students that are out of district, and wait for that April 1st move-in, move-out date, which is approaching, and so we'll have more clarity around special education. And again, that's a number that continues to change, not only up until April 1st, but as we march towards town meeting, that will continue to become more and more clear. We always hope that number is going to go down. There's always a chance it's going to go up. As of right now, we're confident that number is going to go down. We also, this circuit breaker, which was initially budgeted in our budget at 68%. The initial governor's budget has circuit breaker at 68%, so that also gives us some additional relief in our FY16 budget. And that brings us, yes?
Can I just say, you had mentioned it earlier about like free and reduced lunch.
Yep.
How are we doing on that? Is that number, is that staying pretty steady? Are we seeing changes in it?
We've definitely seen an increase in our free and reduced lunch population over the last few years. And there's some I think that there are more people that are qualifying for free and reduced lunch, but also the state has done a nice job of different agencies talking to one another in this instance. So a family that receives subsidies in another area, whether it be in the area of housing or food or medical, that all goes into a database, and that's called a direct certification. So those families, if they receive any other subsidies, are directly certified for free and reduced lunch. So that becomes part of our free and reduced lunch population. And families that may not have applied for free lunch automatically are getting that now, and they get a letter from us that says that they have been qualified for free lunch. And I think probably what has happened in years past, and I've actually had conversations with families that, and I'm going to say years ago, if you had free or reduced lunch, you'd go to the office, you'd get a red card or a pink card or a blue card, and that would be your cash, or that would be your money. You'd go to the cafeteria and everyone would know that you qualified for free or reduced lunch. Our program now, with our point of sale, it's absolutely blind. So you go and you put your code in, and your 4-digit number, nobody knows if you're not exchanging money because you get free lunch, or if you're not exchanging money because someone put money into your account. So there's no more outward identification or stigma attached to that.
Which is great.
So yeah, so that program's been in place now in Abington for 4 years, and that's definitely helped. If you qualify for free or reduced lunch, there's other services that you qualify for within the school district. For example, bus fee, and that's by state mandate. And it also, depending on the percentage within your district, qualifies you for different grants, or mostly grants. So we're at a place that, and I'm trying to remember what the exact percentage is, and we just talked about it on Friday with Bernie, and I don't want to quote the wrong number for a percentage, but we have definitely seen an increase.
With that increase, does that have an impact on our budget?
The cafeteria is a separate revolving account.
Right.
So that does not. The impact may be on the number of students who qualify for free bus, but it does not, in terms of the cafeteria itself, that's a revolving account that is totally separate from the school's operating budget. And out of that food service account comes the food service staff, the food, the point of sale, the computers, that's all independent.
Yeah, everything.
Okay. So an increase in that, there's certain fees that families pay, but we wouldn't charge them because that's our threshold. If they qualify, then we know. Okay. So an increase means less fees we collect. Okay.
Was that, going back, that 68% circuit breaker, could that have been a trade-off because the governor did provide extra money in Chapter 70 funding and in local aid funding? Could that have been a trade-off where he's not going to go up to that 75%? How do you feel about it, I guess?
Do I think that it's going to go up to 75 now? I think we're probably going to be somewhere between, at the end, 68 and 70. And that's what I'm hearing. Part of the percentage that they take the line item that's in the governor's budget around circuit breaker, and they project it out based on historical data around the dollar amount that cities and towns or school departments have submitted for reimbursement. So based on that historical data, the calculation done by the Department of Education is that based on the dollar amount on the line item and based on what the historical data shows for submission for circuit breaker, that it'll be at, they're saying 68%. What has happened historically is they've gone a little bit low, and then your last 2 payments by the state bump it up to 68 or a percentage or 2. Our Chapter 70 in the governor's budget, our Chapter 70 increase is $20 a student.
Is that number 20 per student down from previous years?
That's what we got last year.
$20, okay.
Yeah, and previous to that, it was, chapters, it didn't go by student. It was a percentage or dollar amount.
So there'll be,
That's the bottom. The
Okay.
minimum, they've said the minimum that a town is gonna get is $20 per student, and we're in that minimum band.
okay. And aren't most communities in that minimum band?
A lot of communities.
Yeah.
I spent quite a bit of time last week with two of my colleagues who are two communities much like Abington, and one is getting a $180,000 increase in Chapter 70, and another one's getting the $20 a student. And the three of us sat there with all the information that the state provided and tried to figure out why. And three of us spending a lot of time couldn't really figure it out.
So someone's getting 180 and we're getting 39.
But that's mostly because it's the Department of Revenue feeds the equation into DESI. And so those indicators of wealth in a community are what drive the.
Right, and the formula takes into account the aggregate wealth in the community, the total assessed value of homes, the income of the average and median income in the communities. The Chapter 70 formula, as we've talked about, is very, very complicated, and for a community like Abington, it hasn't been good to communities like Abington, because we're in that middle. And my last piece is around the consideration of a special town meeting warrant article to be included in the town's capital plan. And as I mentioned earlier, we don't have specific information yet from the town regarding the town's capital plan and how our capital plan request will fit in to the overall financial package of town meeting. What historically has happened is a percentage of free cash has gone into stabilization, part has been used for capital items. And with the snow and ice, we're still unsure of snow and ice and other budget questions, unsure of what the total commitment of the town, or the recommendation will be for town meeting around the capital plan. However, the recommendation from the school department to you is around technology. And we've been talking over the last few years about the need for not only instructional technology to be used as instructional, but also to be used for assessment and preparing for the next generation assessment, whether it be PARC or something else. The need to have technology available and being used for instructional purposes and for assessment. Last year, as part of the capital plan, we were lucky enough to receive $150,000 that improved our infrastructure and improved computers in classrooms. This is the second round, what we see as kind of the second round of that. My recommendation to you is for $156,500, and that is to include 2 laptop carts for each of our, for the high school, Folio, Woodsdale, Beaverbrook. So 2 laptop carts, so 64 laptops in each of those schools, and 1 iPad cart of 15 iPads for Center School. The estimate is based on 2 carts, 32 computers on each cart. We believe our current wireless infrastructure would support those. Within the buildings, they would be wheeled around, so to be used instructionally in classrooms and then be added to the current computers that are in the buildings now for assessment purposes. And
So they would be just for assessment purposes only?
no, they'd be
They would be
used for
okay,
instruction
instructional
first
and assessment.
and for assessment.
Okay.
Yep. And anticipating one of the next questions would be what will happen to these when we go into our new school. Depending on what the technology looks like, the actual devices in the new school, they can be wheeled into the new middle high school and be used and get right on the network that'll be established in that new school, or go to the Woodsdale or to the Beaver Brook. So these are flexible, they'll be able to be used. Devices have not been chosen yet, and that's something that changes so quickly that even a device recommended today might not be the device that would be recommended in July. Any questions on that?
Do we have an overall technology plan for the district?
We do.
So how does this fit into it? Because you said earlier, round one was last year's $150,000.
Yep.
This is round two.
Yep.
It's $150,000, but the total request will be $476,000.
Correct.
So, but the total request then is 476 plus 150, because we spent 150 last year.
Yep.
The 150 isn't coming, last year isn't coming off the 476. So what is the total cost for technology that we need now, in addition to when we go into the new building?
Well, for right now, in order to fully have a one-to-one computing environment, is $476,000. Last year's money was used for infrastructure, wireless, and devices. There was a device was added to each classroom. The second piece is now, this year, to have 64 additional devices in each building at approximately $156,000. The goal is to have, to have the largest tested grade level in each building to have a computer for.
So that 476,000, that's per device cost would be about, if that's the total cost of all the devices, what would be the device cost on a one-to-one?
I believe, and I don't have this, I believe that includes the device and additional building infrastructure.
Okay.
Like the wireless service and everything like that involved.
Yep. Electricity, data, wireless.
So we look, if it's 150 this year, is a plan next year to come back for another 150, or the remainder of the what's left over?
That'll be a decision on the school committee. I think our recommendation would be to walk towards that at 150, 150, 150.
And then when we go into the new building, though, are we buying things now that we have in scope for the new building?
No, once we get into the new building, and there's a technology budget for the new building, and that includes hardware, software, infrastructure, switches, servers. So there's a budget for that, and depending how far that budget gets, and we're still working through that now as part of our design development and programming needs, either these devices will go into the new building, a percentage of them, the ones that we purchase this year and hopefully purchase next year, or they'll be repurposed and half go to the Woodsdale, half go to the Beaver Brook, and be able to have that number for the largest tested grade.
Okay.
It'd be nice to benefit them too.
Can you just clarify this memo that we have?
Sure.
Because I read it as we're doing this because of Park. That's what the emphasis is here. But that's not the message you're giving me now.
Correct.
So how do I balance what I have in my hand with what you're saying?
We're doing it to improve the use of technology in our classrooms, and either the MCAS test or the PARC test is going to be done using technology in the future. So if PARC is implemented, we want to continue to prepare for that. If it's not, most importantly, computers need to be used in classrooms to educate children. Some districts are just spending for Chromebooks and just buying a bunch of Chromebooks so they can implement online testing. And we're not doing that. We want to be responsible about it and use it for teaching and learning. Park has just added to this discussion.
Right, but this memo is all driven by Park.
The technology goal is recommended that Abington continue to develop next-generation classrooms and establish a scaling one-to-one computer program to achieve the recommendation for park readiness. But the next-generation classroom is technology, one-to-one computing within the classroom.
Right, but for me, you skipped over the most important part, the first sentence. As previously discussed, to further ready district ability to administer the electronic format of the park assessment. That's, we mentioned Park a couple of times, and we're not there yet. So we're really doing this to get a device in front of every student. It's not about Park assessment.
As many devices as possible.
As many, right, over.
Yes.
I think it goes, yes, that's the first priority, and then the second priority is whatever the new testing, whether it's electronic version of MCAS in the next 2 or 3 years, whether it's Park, whether it's another vendor, if you will, providing a new testing environment, that we would have kids not only be using them for instruction and other types of assessment, and then also whatever the next generation assessment is, statewide assessment.
Right, okay. But that's not what the memo says, so.
Well, it does say that. It does say park assessment and address our future academic and technology goals. It does say that. So it does touch on both subjects right there.
I mean, it could say, as previously discussed, to further ready the district's ability to administer the electronic format of Park, or whatever Massachusetts decides.
Yeah, I just worry about someone picking this up, saying the school committee is promoting Park, and it's like, we're not there yet, because we don't know what the state's gonna do. And that, yeah, we want to be ready if it's gonna be Park. Whatever devices we get now, we want to be ready for that assessment. But I just worry about someone picking this up, 6 months from now, saying, well, you guys supported Park, you wanted it, that you went out and bought devices for it. And it's like, no, we went out to buy devices because we needed them.
Right. And we can make sure that the minutes of.
Yeah, we can just make sure there's something reflected in the minutes that, yeah. Thank you.
Alicia, on the grid, I'm sorry.
Can I just because if you go to the second.
That's where I was getting the park right there.
Yeah, exactly, yeah,
Right.
thank, okay.
On the back where the grid is.
Yep.
Oh,
I see, yep.
Yeah,
Total
so maybe,
devices.
yeah, it should
We'll
just
take
be.
that up, yep.
And then I just had a question on the spares. So those would just be utilized and kind of float through whatever school needed a spare set up at that point?
Yeah, I would assume that it would be for that, extra
Yep.
batteries,
Yep.
extra cords, keyboards.
Yep.
Yep.
No one ever drops a laptop.
Never.
Or spill something on
Right.
it. Or,
And if pricing is better, then, one of the things that Rich Bykowski and I have talked about is really the due diligence around the purchase of the device and how important that is. And, Peter alluded to Chromebooks, which a lot of districts are buying, just going and buying Chromebooks, which I'm not saying is neither good nor bad, but we need to make sure that whatever device, to go back to Paul's point, whatever device that is recommended is something that can be used for everyday instruction, that is hardy, that has a good battery life, that isn't going to be used for 2 months of the year, but really be used for 10 months and be able to be used in every classroom and plugged in overnight and have enough power for the next day. And so he's working with vendors around what the best device is, but again, to make a recommendation on a device today could very well change by the end of June.
Because truly, this is not about a testing format that doesn't even have approval yet in Massachusetts. That we're trying to be ready for that if that happens, but more importantly, the other.
And it's probably close to like 11 months, 1 week, right? Because we have a fabulous summer school program here.
Oh, yeah.
That
Yeah.
people use them too.
Absolutely.
Right. So it's not just it's over the summer months too.
So, Is there any more discussion or questions?
Yeah.
So we'd be looking for a motion to submit to the town for consideration at the special town meeting a capital plan for technology of $156,500.
I'll make that motion. Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Next, we have new business and establishing of the next school committee meeting, which will be April 28th at 7 PM here in the town hall. Information?
Answers questions.
At this point, by roll call, we're going to be going...
Can I just, I just want to take an opportunity to thank Jack Bailey for the parade that he puts on 36th year in a row. It's just amazing what he does. But, but no, what because at the end of the parade, you know, the Division 5 Super Bowl champs were there. Etienne was there in his golf cart. And the commitment that not only from the student athletes, but also from the coaches and everybody, and it's, you know, not just the sports. You've got Steve Shannon, what he does with the musical and breaking things down. And I'm there at the end of the parade, and everybody else is gone, and there's a float there, and you got Coach Kell there taking the decorations off there. And it's just, that's just one example of the commitment of all the teachers and administrators and everybody in this district, you know, for great kids like Sam, you know, and going to, you know, Europe for a week. They don't have to do that. And it's just amazing, the great people that we have in the school department. And that was just one example. I noticed that, you know, having this great pride. That's why, you know, I can always tell Jack that, but on my own. But there's such great pride in this town, and it shouldn't be overlooked. And we should, you know, whether we have the Super Bowl party at Emerald Isle or whatever. But there's just so many good people in this district that work with kids every single day. And I just want to say thank you to Sam and all the coaches, the great year they did, and, you know, Steve Shannon and everybody else that works in the other extracurricular areas. It's just a wonderful system that we have, and that we evaluated Peter tonight, and I'm glad we have Peter, you know, steering this ship. You do a great job, and I want to thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's my soapbox moment for the night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we'll be going into executive session. We need to make a vote by roll call going into there.
Not to return.
Not to return to our
public
public
session.
session. Okay. All in favor? Leslie?
Aye.
Yep.
Kathy? Yep. 8:57.
8:57.
See you later, Matt.